This is a much crazier feat than most people realize because there are many powerful Nen users that might not be registered as hunters. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why the Zodiac versus the Royal Guards is obvious. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. So the Zodiac versus the Royal Guards is a battle between three monsters so powerful that they were placed near the pinnacle of the verse the very moment they were born, versus 12 of the strongest hunters in the entire hunter organization. Today we're going to analyze every single power-up and ability these monsters have displayed to figure out overall who's more powerful than who between these two forces. The original 12 Zodiac are stated to be sparring partners for the chairman Netero. We've seen very little of their physical abilities, but the statements and lore of these characters gives us a good amount of information to create a low and high ball estimation for how powerful they actually are. Bisky states that Netero told her in the past that Ging is one of the top 5 Nen users, not just top 5 in the Hunter Association, top 5 in the entire world. This is a much crazier feat than most people realize because there are many powerful Nen users that might not be registered as hunters. Characters like Zeno, Silva, and the Phantom Troop, for example, none of which are stated to even have the title of being top 10 Nen users. Furthermore, due to how Nen battles work in Hunter x Hunter, people who are close in power to one another can defeat each other depending on different factors, such as their condition at the time, if they go into battle with a plan, or if they have knowledge on their opponent's abilities, meaning under the right circumstances, that Ging, even in the past, could have beaten the strongest Nen user in the world, especially if he had a plan or knowledge of his opponent's abilities beforehand. And finally, when the anime shows Ging with the title of being among top 5 Nen users in the entire world, they show a young Ging appearing to be around the same age he was when he defeated Razor, meaning there's a real possibility that Ging earned this title of being a top 5 Nen user many years ago and has gotten much stronger since. Ging explains that one of his talents is that he can generally imitate any punching ability he's been hit with. This alone would make him stronger than a top 5 Nen user over the years because we have no idea how many new abilities he would have gained during that time period. Ging getting stronger over time is also very likely because Ging has been preparing to enter the Dark Continent, an area filled with creatures even more dangerous than the Chimera ants. It's worth considering the fact that there's a real possibility that Ging became the #1 strongest Nen user a long time ago and was just too lazy to ever officially obtain the title. The fact that he already reached the qualifications to be a triple star hunter a while ago, but was too lazy to fill out the paperwork, so as a result just keeps the double star title, backs this idea up even further. Triple star hunter is the highest accolade a hunter can possibly receive, and despite the Hunter Association being filled with monsters, there's still less than 10 triple star hunters in the entire world. Of this super small number, 3 of them are within the Zodiac. Periston was the vice chairman of the association. He's a triple star hunter so dangerous and crazy that another triple star hunter, Cheadle, calls him an out of control monster. He loves being hated and shows zero fear even when having most of the Zodiac enraged at him at once. And despite being implied to be quite formidable, Ging still confidently states he could beat Periston in a fight. Sayu is another Zodiac member that shows somewhat of a rivalry to Ging. Ging and Sayu talk about fighting each other, and Sayu shows zero fear at the idea of battling Ging. In addition to handling calamities more dangerous than the ants that killed Netero, the Zodiac are tasked with the mission of keeping Beyond Netero in check. Sayu later states he would be able to handle watching over Beyond Netero on his own. We don't know Beyond's power. He could be weaker than Old Man Netero, or he could be, like his name suggests, stronger or or beyond Old Man Netero in power. There's also a line of dialogue implying that Netero was hoping his son would challenge him in a battle, so there's really a lot of different ways to interpret his strength. Later in the arc, they have 3 Zodiac watching over Beyond Netero while he's in captivity. A highball implication of this is that Beyond might be around the strength level of 3 Zodiac members together. Even the Zodiac members themselves argue about whether or not they're wasting too much of the Zodiac's manpower guarding him, so it's up for debate. Furthermore, it should be noted that Sayu is later revealed to be a spy, so his statement about guarding Beyond by himself might not mean he's strong enough to defeat Beyond 1v1. It could just be a trick to free Beyond from captivity. Despite this, Sayu's broken Hatsu ability and willingness to square up with a confirmed top 5 Nen user like Ging makes the idea of him being able to defeat Beyond somewhat believable. Sayu's Hatsu ability makes his opponent blind, deaf, and lose their ability to speak if he hits them 3 times, meaning he could 3-shot nearly any human in the verse, because once they lose their senses, it becomes very easy to predict their next attacks, reading the flow of their aura. Finally, Botobai is the oldest member of the Zodiac and is a triple-star hunter in the defense squad for the Dark Continent mission, with the responsibility of destroying any threats that attack the Zodiac on their Dark Continent mission. The Dark Continent mission is also narratively viewed as the mission to surpass Netero, because all the Zodiac know that Netero died fighting the Chimera Ants, which are some of the least dangerous creatures from the Dark Continent. Despite this, the defense squad shows zero fear at the idea of fighting threats even stronger than the ones that killed Netero. Despite not seeing his abilities yet, some fans believe Botobai might be the second strongest Zodiac after Ging. The Zodiac often get downplayed due to Hisoka's scale of a few of the members ranging from 75 points to 90 points. The reality is, we don't know exactly what Hisoka was measuring with this scale. One possible interpretation is that he was measuring their overall Nen capacity. This is the interpretation I actually believe to be very possible, because we see other Nen users do this throughout the series. A great example being Knuckle, when the narrator states, due to his experience and many Nen battles, Knuckle can almost instantly tell how much total aura a person has as soon as he starts fighting them. Other interpretations of Hisoka's scale are possible, such as maybe he was just measuring how dangerous they seemed from his own perspective, or maybe he was measuring their overall potential. But if Hisoka was measuring just aura capacity, then it should be noted that aura capacity alone is not a good enough measure of overall strength in many cases, especially when you consider characters like Kurapika. Kurapika's overall aura capacity is never implied to be very impressive, yet with Emperor Time, he became strong enough to slap 50% Uvogen around, even at the beginning of the series. Hisoka's an overconfident character because he's very strong and was on a legendary win streak, but when you consider Bisky's statement about characters close in power being able to defeat each other depending on varying conditions, it's very possible the higher tier Zodiac are capable of defeating Hisoka under certain conditions as well, especially if Hisoka underestimates an ability like Sayu's and goes blind and deaf mid-battle, and the strongest Zodiac members like Ging would obliterate Hisoka. All that being said, how would the Zodiac do battling against the Royal Guard? The Royal Guard are so strong that they were performing feats some of the strongest Nen users couldn't even dream of the moment they were born, such as using N over the entire palace for days on end without even getting tired. Meanwhile, Nen masters like Zeno state that using N is a tiring technique for him. Pito killed Kite, someone stated to be stronger than a Nen master, before Pito even developed a Hatsu ability, and Yuppie, despite being canonically the dumbest of the Royal Guard due to being made of magical beasts instead of humans, had a disgusting amount of total aura. But there's a few statements that give us a good idea about how a battle between the Royal Guard and the Zodiac would have gone. It's stated that the Zodiac members are stronger than Morel and Nove. Cheadle, a triple-star Zodiac who is now the new chairman and depicted as one of the smartest Zodiac members. In the Viz manga translation, Cheadle states, the reason Netero chose Morel and Nove for the Chimera Ant mission instead of the Zodiac is because Netero himself wanted to hunt in person. This implies that Netero thought, if I bring the Zodiac, they'll finish the mission themselves and I won't get a chance to fight at all. Meaning, based on this translation, Netero thought that the Zodiac could have killed killed the Royal Guard and Meruem on their own. This might be one of the most underrated statements in the entire series because Cheadle is stating this even knowing Netero died fighting these opponents. Meaning Cheadle is saying, even though these guys are stronger than Netero, working together, we would still kill them. And considering how it's rare that all the Zodiac meet up all at once, this statement becomes even crazier. And it's backed up even further by how none of them show any fear at the idea of taking on the Dark Continent. They know they're fighting opponents stronger than Netero, and none of them even care. The anime has a different translation of this scene where Cheadle essentially says, Botobai, you're mad because you didn't get a chance to fight the Chimera Ants yourself. You could interpret that as maybe Botobai is mad at himself for not being there and felt he could have helped Netero against the Royal Guard and Meruem, or that Botobai would have at least done better than Morel and Nove did. The anime does have very slight differences from the manga, so let me know in the comments which interpretation you prefer. For now, we'll just save the manga translation as somewhere in the range of a medium to highball interpretation of the Zodiac. Finally, we see that Knuckle, Melioron, and Morel working together almost beat Youpi using an elaborate plan and battle experience. This is very telling because at the start of the arc, Morel states that Knuckle and Shoot aren't reliable enough for even invading the Queen's palace, and at most, they would be best to be used as bait, meaning literally an exhausted Morel plus several hunters who scale below him and one unhinged crash out still managed to kill one Royal Guard and likely would have killed a second one if they sacrificed Morel in the process. Morel had fought for multiple days on end and was stated to be at 35% of peak condition at the start of the invasion. A battle between Youpi and a full power Morel, Knuckle, and Melioron would have gone very differently. Morel almost guaranteed would not have gotten himself in that situation, and Youpi very likely would have died in that battle, and he might have still had more energy to spare to hunt down Poof with Knuckle and Melioron after that. Seeing how the Zodiac are stated to be stronger than Morel and Nove, and there's literally 12 of them instead of the one Morel and several characters who scale below him who actually took on the mission, this heavily implies that if the Zodiac were given the same mission, even if you lowball them to the maximum and believe some of them would have died, they would have killed all 3 Royal Guards in the process, especially if they create a plan similar to how the Palace Hunters did. If you use the medium to highball interpretation of the Zodiac, then this fight turns out very badly for the Royal Guards. Netero states that he hasn't been the strongest Nen user for over 50 years, meanwhile Ging became a top 5 Nen user years ago and has likely only gotten stronger in preparations for the Dark Continent. Characters like Sayu show zero fear at the idea of fighting Ging, and the oldest member of the Zodiac, Botobai, is a triple star hunter that might be relative to Sayu. Using the medium to highball interpretation, the top 3 Zodiac would be like having 3 characters relative in power to Netero on your team, with some of them possibly even being stronger than Netero. Seeing how characters even like Greed Island Gone are capable of defeating characters stronger than themselves like Genthru using a plan, this all heavily implies that a medium to highball interpretation of the original 12 Zodiac would be able to kill the 3 Royal Guards, and they might complete the task with none of them dying, as long as they create a plan and stick to the plan. Without a plan, I'd say it's possible that 1 or 2 of them could die, especially to a sneak attack from a character like Postmortem Nen Pito. In complete honesty, a combination of Sayu making Meruem blind, deaf, and unable to speak, while Ging, Botobai, and Periston jump him, likely could have killed Meruem as well. Finally, the new iteration of the Zodiac replaced Ging and Periston with Kurapika and Leorio. So the new Zodiac's odds of victory drop greatly because Leorio is useless fodder and Kurapika is fodder compared to Ging. But Kurapika teaming up with other Zodiac can still create some win conditions against Royal Guard characters. Kurapika could steal 2 and at most all 3 of the Royal Guard's Hatsu abilities, give them to the Zodiac to use, then jump the Royal Guard with their own abilities while the Royal Guard have no abilities or aura of their own to defend themselves. The new iteration of the Zodiac, if given a plan using Kurapika's insane intellect that he used to become capable of defeating Phantom Troop members within months of learning Nen, a middle ball interpretation is that they would still very likely extreme diff kill all of the Royal Guard, even if several of the Zodiac died in the process. If you lowball them, the new iteration of the Zodiac would have just done slightly better than the Palace Invasion Squad did in the the actual story, and they killed one royal guard, and it's implied they would have beaten Yuppie as well if they sacrificed Morel. So a lowball interpretation is they would have killed 2 royal guard, then died in the process. And a highball interpretation is that with a plan, the new iteration of Zodiac would wipe out all of the royal guard, with at most 1 or 2 Zodiac dying. But I believe the middle ball interpretation is most likely. Meruem might be out of the reach of the abilities with the new Zodiac, but it's up for debate, because if that's all it takes to kill the new iteration of the Zodiac, then they're very foolish for signing up for the Dark Continent mission. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see ya on the next one.